Thank you, Amanda. Okay, well, I'm glad that now, of course, I see we got the Baptists in the back, we got the Catholics in the front, and the Presbyterians way in the back, represent, represent. I am excited that Carrie's here because she was, last year at the Lean HR Summit, I did a half-day workshop, and I mean, she was the energy that lit the light bulbs in the room, and I'm just hoping that she does that for us today. Of course, if the two of us in the same room, there's a potential for critical mass, so be careful. All right, so the stuff since I got a small group today, the stuff I'm going to share with you today is really kind of new. It's brand spanking new. The ink is still wet on this thing if you reach up here and you see it. Because I haven't shared it outside of Lean Leadership Academy methodologies. So to tell you, so it'll make sense to you a little bit what it is that I do. The Lean Leadership Academy is more of a transformation and leadership development platform that I use with our transformation clients. And my partner Art Smalley and I, we work with which Art was in the session last year. We work with leadership teams to build their management model. And if you really embrace a total system approach to Lean, then it takes a different style of leadership. And so some of the messages I'm going to share with you today are the things that we share with our transformation leaders that help create the platforms for their transformation. Now, normally when we work with a client, we'll normally kind of put together a leadership group that's going to go through some very specific training that prepares them for that leadership role. And at the request of a couple of folks, they asked me to share the buddy system that has kind of made its way around the world. So I'll share that with you so it'll make sense as well. But one of the things that we say that there's three people that must be in the initial Lean Leadership Transformation Group, which we call a WAVE. The senior site leader, and that doesn't matter what role they're playing in the organization. If they're the president and they're the senior person on site, they're there. They lead from the front. The other person is the controller or finance director, and from the very beginning, and the other mandated position is the human resource director. Everyone else is based on need, but the three mandated members of the transformation team are those three. So you might say, well, why is it that the human resource leader has to be part of that transformation group? Is because there is nothing that we're going to do in building a lean management system and leading through a lean transformation that you're going to do that you don't need that pacemaker for human development early in the transformation process, because we incorporate a lot of people development both on the management side and on the team member side fairly early on in the process. So it makes sense that those three people form kind of the cornerstone of the Lean Transformation Leadership Group. And then everyone else is really kind of based on what does the business case need, or if I had your entire staff in here and I asked your customers, who needs to be in this first transformation group, and they say the quality guy, well, the quality guy is going to be in there. So it's really kind of based on need and business case after that. So we're going to do some flip charting today, less than a workshop, more of a demonstrate the idea kind of thing. And by the end of the day, it'd be like the old Fat Albert, show. Before you know it, you might learn something. So I hope that we have an opportunity to kind of share some ideas, and I'll pull some stuff out of you to kind of populate the process up here. If I had a little bit more time, I'd say, okay, so what does everybody want to get out of the day? So I'm hoping because you're here, you kind of think this plan for every person thing is pretty cool. So what is a plan for every person? It's really a play on word. If you've been around lean supply chains a little bit and you understand and you've heard the term used before in relationship to purchase parts management, Toyota, plan for every part is what a PFEP is. But interestingly enough, as Art and I were working with our leadership groups on how we were approaching developing people inside of the organization, it reminded him that back in his days at the Comigo plant in Japan, is that his boss would have a stack of 3x5 cards in his desk, and occasionally he would pull those out and write down notes on development strategy for the staff that he directly led, so the people who were his direct reports. And Art happened to ask him, what was the significance of that stack of 3x5 cards? And he kind of smiled and said, "Oh, that is my plan for every person, my PFEP." So we've adopted that term as kind of a holistic approach to developing people. And so the strategies that I'm going to share with you today really kind of will be literally some things you can go home this weekend with and try it out at home, or you can wait to go to work on Monday and you can try it out at work on Monday. Okay, so so here at the Lean HR and TWI conference, how do we tie this in? Well, I will demonstrate to you today that there is a strong connection between the plan for every person, a lean transformation, the methods that we learn in TWI, both the job instruction, job methods, and job relations, and as well as including a key role for the lean HR leader. Notice I don't call him manager. The lean HR leader as the pacemaker for people development in the organization. That no matter what your role is in the organization, you have a responsibility. If you've embraced the fact that you're a lean leader, you must develop people. You must at least develop the people who directly report to you. But I will challenge you that we need to go a little bit deeper than that, and I will give you a platform for doing that, and thus the buddy method. So it is the responsibility of every lean leader to develop a very coherent and a very detailed plan for developing the people that they directly lead. Okay, and if it's a team-based type organization, which this model really kind of fits, then you're able to get throughout the entire organization by having every leader, develop a plan for every person. Man, that worked out real good, didn't it? Okay, so as leaders, we must do several things, especially as lean leaders. We must have the capability to inspire, to actually recruit. Does that sound like a human resource leadership role? How about communicate? Is that something that lean leaders should be able to do, especially the lean HR leader? Absolutely. What about build relations? Does that tie back to TWI, build team relations, right? Teach. Where do we normally look to for that responsibility? In traditional organizations, right? Human resources. What about coach? Here's the lost art of mentoring made it into my list up here. We have to mentor, but as lean leaders, we know that's a part of our responsibility. Plan and problem solve, advise, achieve results, and challenge. Okay, can you do any of that as a lean leader without developing people? Can you do that as a lean leader without developing yourself? Absolutely not. So if we are going to perform our role as lean leaders, including the HR leader, the pacemaker for people development in the organization, then clearly we have to be able to develop people capable of doing these things, and we have to develop ourselves. So we have to have a method for that. So the things that we're going to talk about today, what is a PFEP? I'm going to give you a model for it to work with. Again, this is all kind of new and it's fresh, so you can try it out and tell me if Sam, that was the craziest thing I've ever heard. I've had people say that. Or, man, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and next year you can tell me how you applied all this stuff, and I'll feel good about it, and my wife will be back there and say, you actually, do something good for people. So let's see. I'm going to connect it to situational leadership. How many people here have actually had some exposure to situational leadership? Some? Have you had any, Kerry? Okay, so I was exposed to situational leadership a long time ago, and as I grew as a lean leader, I couldn't find a better fit as a platform for lean transformation and people development, because at the core of this particular model is that it requires you as a leader to consider the developmental level of the people you lead. therefore, it made sense that this was part of lean leadership capability. So I will share an overview with that, and I'll show you how we work that into the PFEP process. I'll also talk about the TWI connections. One of the things that you'll find out when I work with leaders, I say the thing that makes us unique as lean leaders is that we have fundamental beliefs, we have fundamental values. The other thing is we have fundamentally unique thinking structures. And one of those thinking structures, the sources of those thinking structures, is the TWI structure. You know, major steps, key points, reasons why. The job breakdown fundamental thinking structure. And then, of course, we have very specific behaviors, expectations that we have for lean leaders as well. So those things make us unique from other leadership platforms or leadership methods. We'll also talk about something that we do with our leaders every day called making a PACE plan. It's how we approach cross-functional, both leader and team member development. We'll also talk about how we make it a priority every day through the top 5 process with our leaders. That's kind of cool. Every day I get, you know, our senior leaders say, man, since we've adopted the top 5 approach, we are building people and we're building things much better. Then I'm going to go over, real recently spent a lot of time back at Toyota at Georgetown in the powertrain area, you know, for quite a period of time, going over the new process they have for floor management and development system. And one of the things that we talked about was their new team member and existing team member 4-step process, certification process, which is quite robust. So I'm going to give you an overview of that. Again, something you could take home and try out. It'll take a little bit of work, but very specific, and talk some Toyota stuff today. And then we'll talk about the things that should influence your plan for every person. What are the inputs that drive that plan for every person? And then we'll summarize with some of the basic fundamentals of being successful with this. So does that sound like something that you maybe thought, wow, this is the right place for me today? I could be across the street with John Velema playing with Legos, but I'm glad I'm here today. So we get done early, we'll go over there and play with the Legos too. And then there's Q&A. No, they do not have Legos. Pay no attention to that. There are no Jedi here. Please move along. Okay, so plan for every person is a detailed, keep in mind, a detailed plan to help team members and leaders alike. So there's nothing different. PFEP needs to be developed for yourself, for other leaders that you need to develop, and team members in order to reach their full potential. A PFEP must support and be aligned with your business objectives and the objectives of the team members. So there's a partnering that must take place. So it requires the mentoring skills that we talked about. And then the PFEP must be developed in partnership with the aspirations of the person that you lead and make sure that it's aligned to your business case. And then a PFEP is a career-long process. Leaders do this regularly. I tend to do it on a quarterly basis with my team members because I had a smaller group to lead, even though they led more people in a team-based organization. So it was very easy on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, and on a quarterly basis to review that PFEP and see how we're doing against progress. So it was very easy to maintain that way instead of trying to do it once a year or semi-annual. So the model is a mentoring model, and it's really designed for a team-based organization. So small group leadership, even if I'm the president, I'm still got that small team around me, and I can go down into their team 1 or 2 levels into the organization. So keep those fundamentals in mind, but it's great for a team-based type environment. So a long time ago, trying to increase the connectivity and active learning of the leaders that I developed, we came up with what's called the buddy system. Because, now this is where the special forces stuff comes from, and it doesn't involve snake eating yet. We came up with, I normally work with organizations, and I started out by training my own team first. And so I formed the lean leadership classes in order to create some form of critical mass, okay, into teams. And I wanted to get them used to team-based environment. So I always designated a class leader, and it was always the senior site leader. So if I'm in your plant, you're the plant manager, guess what? You're the class leader, you're going to be in there. Otherwise, we're not going to really work together, okay? So it's kind of leverage you built up over time. And usually is in the business case development, we talk about this and we actually fill in the blocks. Who's going to be in here? And then to get them used to a team-based environment, we assigned team leaders, and we put in these team leader positions, might be a combination of maybe their areas, the pilot area that we're going to go into. Or we may have a management development person that just came out of college and we want to put them in the hot seat and do some accelerated development. So there was always a critical reason why we put somebody in this accelerated leadership hot seat to develop them. And then the other thing that we did is we created a buddy system. So the team was made up of, the smallest team we had was a buddy system. So what made it unique was that this buddy is always responsible for everything his buddy does or fails to do. So we made it where, as leaders, we get results through other people and other people's performance. So at the smallest level, we had a way for a leader to experience the requirements of leadership. And one of the ways we emphasized that early on was through some academic requirements. So for example, if we had a test, we always had a test, and our test always took place in the first hour of the first day of the next time we got together. So you had that whole month to kind of work together and synergize and build team relations. And so what would happen was, when they took the exam, which is really kind of tough, it's designed where you could not pass it through individual effort. You can only pass it if you work together as a team. You had to tap into the capabilities and talents of everybody on the team to do it. And so let's say the passing score is 80. Let's keep a Pareto, 80-20, okay? And so what would happen is, let's say when they took the exam, this person scored 100, and this person scored a 79. So Carrie, you scored a 79. Yeah, slow learner, that's all right. But Amanda scored 100, okay? Guess what Amanda's score is now? 79. So Amanda's score is now a reflection of her leadership. On the flip side, I've got Jamie in here, and Jamie's the team leader for these two guys. And guess what Jamie's score is now? 79. Yeah, you know, hey, you're responsible for everything your team does or fails to do, right, Jamie? Yeah. And so for the class leader, so there's Sam right there, you know, so guess what my score is? 79. So everybody, guess who's got to take the retest now? Everybody that scored a 79. So what did that do as far as influencing, you know, active learning and making sure that you got connected with your team and your teammate and made sure you developed them actively? So it forced a platform for developing each other that we didn't have before. And so we continued to build on this model. So what it says is Sam's responsible for Jamie's development. I must ensure as a leader going 2 levels down that Jamie is leading his team, and that I also have to go and see with my own eyes, Genchi Genbutsu, that his team is working together in the buddy team. So I'm as responsible for Amanda and Carrie as I am for Jamie. So we call that the 2 levels down, 2 levels up model. So when you look here, when it comes to a PFEP, now, Amanda has done really well in her career, so notice that she got promoted to a leader now, so I got the redhead up there. Yeah. Okay, so now Amanda is responsible for her team leaders' PFEP development, but she's also responsible for those teams. So she doesn't have to directly develop that PFEP, but she's got to have like a top 5 list that she knows that she needs to have that capability inside her organization so she leads through her leadership model to the people she needs to develop. And in doing so, she has a chain development process that's put in place. So now I'm as accountable for your development as your team leader. And if you're not developed properly, well then that, hey, if we always said from a TWI perspective, if the learner didn't learn, the teacher didn't teach. Well, if the follower didn't follow, the leader didn't lead, right? So paraphrase that so a little bit. So we connect this 2 levels down type model as far as how far down in the organization should I be responsible to develop a plan for every person, 2 levels down. At the 2 levels down, you have to have a kind of a high-level capabilities, top 5 capabilities you can't accept risk in. And for the person that directly reports to you, then you should come up with a critical top 5 for that leader and development. And so not only do you identify that top 5, you must now also help construct a platform for gaining that skill or that capability. So you must now design a way for them to gain that capability. And we use a lot of different ways to do that, but we're going to go back to TWI and say, well, let's use some TWI approaches to actually do that, whether it's job relations, job methods, or job instruction. We want to build that capability using, TWI as a baseline. Okay, so we also include in this, as we look at how we approach this, from a basic problem-solving process as well. So kind of focusing in and around the target setting, kind of go back to what John Shook always says, what problem are you trying to solve? And that really is, what you're looking for. So what is the ideal knowledge or capability that you want for your team 2 levels down and has to be in your organization? And part of that is to develop a flexible workforce and manpower, right? What we say is called shojinka in Japanese, which means a level man, right? We want a level workforce capability. So you look at the current situation. What is my current capability 2 levels down? What is the need? What is the ideal capability in the organization? And then what's the gap? So you got the ideal capability to advance the process and develop people, the current capability, and in between that you create a gap. So it's really kind of a problem-solving approach. And then you set up, okay, so what's my target condition? So what is the expectation that I can create through a development platform that says, I know I want to get here, but right now let's start with just getting here. So what is the target? So some things that from a problem-solving perspective we always look at, when you do your analysis, it needs to be what we call AQD, analytic, quantifiable, and detailed. So if you're going to have a gap that you're going to close and set targets, it must be based on analysis, problem-solving methodology. It must be quantifiable and measurable, and then you must have a detailed plan for closing that gap. So we call that AQD. So what are my work responsibilities, kind of you might ask, or what does my team members' work responsibilities? What is the purpose of my work? What are the goals that should guide the purpose of my work? And then what are the knowledge and skills required for me to do my work safely, correctly, conscientiously, and efficiently? And again, if you've been around TWI long enough, where does that come from? Right? So we want to, what's the method of job instructions, right? It's teach someone how to do a particular task safely, correctly, conscientiously, and efficiently. And conscientiously is just a fancy way of saying with great care. It's just I can't spell conscientiously, so I put with great care. Okay, and then there's analyze, prioritize, and decide. So once you've figured out, here's the gap we need to close. Here's the quantifiables of how to measure it and setting the target. And here's the details on how I'm going to close that gap. Then sometimes it's a little tough to eat the whole elephant, so you prioritize what part of the elephant you want to start with. So we say analyze the approach, prioritize through force ranking, and then to kind of bring that to a real simple methodology, we always have you kind of identify what can you not accept risk in versus what must you accept some level of risk in. So as leaders, we understand that there are things that we must not compromise, we can't accept risk in, but by doing that, then that automatically means that there are things we must accept some level of risk in. So we force rank it and prioritize it so that at least we accomplish the things we cannot accept risk in, and we move toward accomplishing the things that we accept some level of risk in. So analyze, prioritize, and then as a leader make a decision. How I'm going to commit to developing people, and I'm going to find a platform to communicate that commitment. So it is really a problem-solving approach, and it's still plan, do, check, act, right? Are you with me so far? Does it make sense? You still think I'm, worth sticking around for, not going playing with Legos for a few minutes, okay? Okay, so the basic PFEP process with all this in mind really kind of starts with analyze. So you want to look in the organization, you want to find the business case, connect 2 levels up. So a lot of times we start that kind of early in our business development process. We always look to say, okay, hey, Kerry, I know what you want to do, but what does your boss want to do? If I had you to sit down and say, what's your boss's top 5? Articulate that for me in the order in which they are his priorities. And you go through that and you do that really well, and then I trick you and I say, okay, so what's your boss's top 5? Or if your boss is the end all to be all, we always say, what's your customer's top 5? I always like to say, if I had your top 5 customers in here right now, and I said cost couldn't be on the table, but we want to grow with you, what would they tell you need to work on? And they would say, maybe get something to me on time, and not be defective. And if you could do it quicker, that would be good too, right? So we normally can tie it to a major strategic or customer need. What problem are you trying to solve, right? Okay, so start with the analytics. 2 levels up, what is the need of the business? What is my department's need? Again, what is my need? Okay, then I go down, and then I ask the question, what are the needs of those that I lead? So I have to look at myself and say, if I'm going to develop a PFEP for myself, what capability do I need? So from a Toyota perspective, there's quite an elaborate process of making sure that leaders have a depth of knowledge so that they actually have to train 2 levels down. So a supervisor will primarily do the training for the team members along with the team leaders. It's not just the team leaders, or it's certainly not just the HR, the dojo's department. So in doing so, you have to have the technical skills that your team members do, right? So there's a process of making sure that leaders or potential leaders actually have those skills before they become leaders. Well, so you got to ask yourself, how can I build that capability in myself? So if I'm going to lead folks, what capability do they need me to have as a leader? Okay, how does that align with the needs of my department and the needs of my organization? And if I crunch that together, can I come up with my top 5 list, prioritized and ranked? The other thing I want to keep in mind is, what are the capabilities do I need for my department, and what are the capabilities I need for my peers? So if I'm going to be a good teammate or for my team, what capability do they need from me? And a lot of times we don't really take these guys into consideration. So we call that 2 levels up, 2 levels down, 1 level to each side. Analysis. How many of you have heard that before? Is that new to you? It's not new to you? Okay. Okay, all right. All right, I just want to make sure it was new to somebody, because then I was going to say, okay, we're done. You can go now. Let's go play with toys. Okay, that's your take home. Go do that this weekend and work it on Monday. Okay, so analyze 2 levels up, 2 levels down, and the need side to side. And then set your priorities. How do we set priorities? You're going to force rank them. What must you accept risk versus what you must something you cannot accept risk in? Because there's going to be a lot of needs in there. If I just told you, give me the top 5 here, the top 5 here, top 5 here, top 5 here, that's going to give you how many? I didn't know I'd do math. Yeah, so you got to narrow that down. They told me this was a smart group. So So I came up with like 65 or something like that, but that's Alabama math. Okay, so then you have to boil that down to the critical few, and then make that decision. So to prioritize, we're going to force rank it, and then we're going to make a decision. And then we have to develop the PFEP plan, which is very specifically, I'm going to say, don't try to do more developmental platforms or activities than what you can put on one hand. So we're going to keep with that theme of top 5. So what are the top 5 capabilities I need to develop in my team or my team members? And let's prioritize that and have a discussion about it. Okay, and then as you get into that, we do have a process of 360-degree assessment. Now, I'm not going to go into that too much detail, but I will give you the offer that I will send you a copy of the 360-degree assessment. We do a self-assessment, buddy assessment, and leader assessment. We do it from that level. 2 levels down, we assess the team member, and then we have their teammates assess them, and then they do a self-assessment, and there's a weighted assessment to that, and then we pull that together as a driver. Yes, ma'am. Honestly, it's like anything in lean. If you do this well, you don't need that traditional stuff anymore. Because this is much, but again, you have to accept that there's mentoring that needs to go on here. So now we're going to be responsible for others. And with traditional performance review, it's generally based on some business type attributes. What you'll find in the assessment we use is their behavioral demonstration assessments. In other words, for example, this team leader demonstrates respect for people, and we'll have a clear demonstrated sub-bullet in the Toyota way that says this is how we're looking at respect for people. Whether it's teamwork or whether it's respect for others, and so you'll have a scale, strongly agree, strongly disagree, and so at the end of it, you have to formulate out of the 19 or 20 attributes, what force rank those from top to bottom, okay, and take your bottom 3 or 4 and put a plan together. Take your top 3 or 4, put a plan together to leverage that. So my recommendation, like most things in lean, you will find that these methods start to be more appropriate to the type of culture we want to build than traditional assessments. It is based on a military type model, though, because as an officer in Special Forces, we used this approach, and it required, as a commander, I had to assess my team members 2 levels down, and we had this 360-degree process, and it's been refined pretty good. The other thing that was kind of cool about it is we had to rank them in the group of everyone we commanded. And so we actually had a built-in macro that said if I was going to rate you number 1, Carrie, I couldn't rate everybody else number 1 either. It mathematically said if Carrie's number 1, then everybody else must be something else. So it forced you as a leader to really think through, how does my team fall out as far as my expectations as a leader in their performance and their capabilities. So it's something for, again, it's something, this stuff is new, so I want you to try it out and give me some feedback on it and see what you think about it. So, but Art and I have developed this over time, and it's working really well with the leaders we're working with because we're looking for very specific behaviors, very specific thinking structures, very specific values, and do they actually demonstrate that in our lean organization? So you're getting assessed on your ability to live the Toyota way or live TPS. It's different, isn't it? So prioritize, decide, develop 360-degree. We could have a session on that. Maybe we'll do a workshop on this where we'll actually do that. So hint, Amanda. And then obviously out of that we're going to reassess our plan and our platform, and then we want to make sure we got improve how, use that feedback to improve both the plan and the performance, and practice. It's an experiment, so we don't expect people to be perfect. We just expect them to improve, right? That's basically practice, isn't it? We want them to practice the values of our organization. So then we go back, the whole loop starts back over again. So some of the things that we're going to talk about now are the how-tos behind some of that. Again, as I mentioned, you will find the TWI methodologies built into everything, this entire approach. We use the job breakdown approach as far as what needs to be improved, how does it need to be improved, and why is it important that we improve it. Remember, when you're working with adults, there needs to be a why is it important, and it goes back to prepare the learner, right? Get the learner interested in the job. So even as a leader, we have to make sure we keep our people interested in the job. Well, the reason why I need you to be able to do this is 2 levels up. Here is how you're going to support the mission of the organization. 2 levels down, you need to know this because your team members depend on you to have that capability. And 1 level side to side, your peers are looking for you to have that capability. And so if you gain this capability, you're going to be a resource that everybody's going to come to. And then so you do the leadership and you make sure they understand the big so what behind why they need to develop or why you need to develop. We also we incorporate everywhere we can the elements of job relation, both the front side of the card and the back side of the card. Especially the front side of the card. And then job methods. Job methods we use mostly as a platform. We want to look for improvement opportunities, and job methods prior to standardized work and Kaizen methodology, if you just do ECRS, eliminate, combine, rearrange, and simplify, that gives anyone an opportunity to learn and develop. You have to, as a leader, work with them to find those opportunities. Where can we apply job methods? So it gives you a basic 4-step method to get the ball rolling. You can do job methods. And we don't emphasize it as much here, but as a lean leader, that's the first thing I introduce them to, and then we build that up into standardized work methods and Kaizen methods because it's simple and you can get things started by using job methods. So the job methods really some of the platforms we use for development. Job instructions, some of the platforms we use for development, especially communication skills, thinking skills, critical thinking skills, and so forth. Okay, still with me? Making sense? Okay, good. There's my logo. Okay, so PFEP development and situational leadership. As I said a long time ago, I was introduced to situational leadership and then later went through the instructor course, Train the Trainer, and went on to do Train the Trainer with team-based high-performance team. And it always made sense to me because it allowed you to develop people from no capability to high capability. And it taught me that in order to do that, I need to lead this way. And so it gave me guidelines on how to adjust my leadership style based on the capability of the person you're leading. So that's the beauty of situational leadership. So situational leadership is really a process of leading that at its core is about developing people. Now the model works because it works on a one-on-one basis, it works on a team basis, or it works at an organizational basis. At the organizational basis, I apply situational leadership through the transformation process because it tells me how I should lead a transformation. So how that works is, you notice down along the bottom here that I have D1, D2, D3, D4, okay? That stands for developmental level, and the developmental levels are comprised of 2 key factors: commitment, low or high, or competency, low or high. And so based on commitment, the commitment level and the competency level, that kind of dictates how I'm going to lead, which is either through directing, coaching, supporting, or delegating. Those are the leadership styles. And then they really kind of describe as a leader how you're to lead based on that developmental level. So what it says is that the skills that we require as situational leaders in order to develop a PFEP, first thing we need to do is we need to consider what is the developmental level of the folks that I lead. But here's the criteria. to the task or to the requirement. So if I decide something 2 levels up is a critical need for my team, a critical capability, I have to ask myself, when it comes to Kevin, just new to the organization, just joined us, and if I need him to run a new project, maybe I want him to run a Kaizen event, I got to ask, okay, all right, so what's his developmental level there? Is it low or high? Well, he may have come from Toyota, so he's good to go, So I have to consider that, right? That's the reason why I hired him in the first place. I needed a ringer, right? So, okay, what leadership style do we need to agree that I'm going to use to lead him in this particular task, a developmental task? And then what are the skills that I need as a situational leadership? How do I flex my skills? How do I apply the right skill, leadership skill, to develop him? And then we're going to sit down and we're going to do something called contracting for leadership. That means we're going to agree that this is the task, here are the targets, I'm going to cover the SMART goals with him. We're going to agree that I'm going to lead him this way because he's a ringer and he's got this skill. I'm going to say, you need a challenge. I'm just going to give you some basic requirements, and I'm going to come over. I need you to improve this over here, and I'm just going to come check on you every so often. And that might be the right way to lead him because he's done it before. But if he hasn't done it before, would that be the right way to lead him? No. So he's probably going to need a lot of direction, and occasionally he might need some support, those tough nights where Kerry's not listening to anything he's saying, and he's struggling as a leader, it's like, it's okay, Kevin, it's okay, you'll get through this. So it does require, that again, back to that lost art of mentoring. Situational leadership requires for you to mentor. You're going to sit down and agree together, on how we're going to develop this capability in you. And the person being developed is going to understand and agree why you're going to take that approach. And then you're going to commit to taking that approach. So it is a commitment, and it is a model of mentoring. So the 3 skills that a situational leadership, a situational leader has to have is first diagnosis. That means you got to diagnose the capability, competency and commitment of the person you're developing. You need to have flexibility. You need to be able to be flexible in how you're going to lead. And believe it or not, that's not as easy as it sounds logical, because in LLA, we actually assess you to see what your flexibility is and whether you will change your leadership style. And based on that, we coach you to make sure you can. And then there's the skill in actually sitting down and going through this process of contracting for development, contracting for leadership. So based on the developmental levels, developmental level 1 is really evidenced by very low competency, new to this. Remember, it's to the task, to the developmental task, right? And then but high commitment. Man, I just joined the team. I want to really do this. I don't know what I'm doing, but I really want to do it, right? So you got what we call them an enthusiastic beginner, okay? But it's just as soon as you get them involved with this, then reality starts to hit a little bit, and so that's kind of evidence of what we call developmental level 2. That is the disillusioned learner. Okay, that's what happens in the lean transformation. As soon as you try to get them to do something, and they start eating each other up because they're frustrated. They know what you want them to do. They just haven't figured it out yet. The interesting thing about this is, honestly, it's almost like a railroad track. You're going to start in the enthusiastic beginner, and then you're going to actually go through this phase of the disillusioned learner. You can't avoid it. The key here as a leader is how long will they be in that? Now, if you don't like them, you leave them there, but if you want them to development, you apply the right leadership style, and you move them through this little sticking point. So again, they have some competency because they're starting to learn, but they haven't figured out how all the parts go together yet. And it starts to affect their level of enthusiasm, so their commitment level. And then there's that group, that sometimes is like they may be much more competent, they may be very competent, but they're not very committed. And we kind of call these the reluctant contributors. And sometimes it's that combination of commitment and competency also affects confidence and willingness. So are they willing to engage? So here we're really kind of looking at engagement levels. So we start to look at development levels. How can we improve engagement? So how do we get that reluctant contributor to be a very active contributor? So the leadership style we need there is, they've got the knowledge, so they don't need a lot of direction, but what they do need is maybe more on the support side. How can I support them, make this important to them? What do they need that they cannot provide for themselves that I, as the leader, I must provide? Direction's really not it, because they're capable. Okay, we just got to get that commitment, engagement back online. And then we got Carrie up here on her bicycle. So you got peak performer. Okay, so how do you lead somebody like that? They're very capable, and they're very committed. So back to what the leaders must be capable of doing. That's where the challenge comes in. What someone like this needs is the challenge. Not a lot of directions, targets. So you set targets for them. You sit down and say, Carrie, I see a challenge that's going to develop you to the next level. So here's what I'm thinking. How does that sound to you? Now, I'm not going to give you a lot of direction, but I will give you very specific guidance on what it takes to be successful there. And then I will be there to kind of monitor your success. But this is your game. You got the ball. Go with it. And so a peak performer needs the challenge. And they don't need someone giving them detailed direction, because it'll just frustrate them. So when you're sitting down and putting your PFEP together, it's so important not to use a one-size-fits-all approach to developing people. You have to consider the developmental level so that you can develop them through the right leadership methodology. Does this make sense? And so that you don't have a misalignment of developmental level to leadership style. Because anytime there's a misalignment, you will cause that disillusioned learner to appear, because they'll get frustrated with you. So to help you with contracting with leadership, and I only include this to help you and as a reference when you get the slides, is it really kind of starts with setting the goals, and the goals are based on what we talked about earlier. What is the ideal state? What is the required state? What is the current state? What's the gap? What's the target state? So you set that target. It's smart goals, right? So we'll establish the SMART goals. Who do I need to develop? Who do I need to influence? Leadership. What are the performance standards and measures? In other words, how will I know that we've accomplished this? How will the person I'm developing know that they're winning, or maybe getting behind and need to adjust their approach? So we have a couple of questions we need to ask. Who do I need to develop? Who do I need to influence? What kind of leadership style do I need with that? How will I know that the job is being completed successfully? How will the person being developed know? Which is just as important. And then what constitutes good performance? So as a leader, and this is something that I work with leaders all the time, up front, what are the SMART goals for this task? Sit down and articulate that, and make sure through the catch-ball process that the person you're leading can articulate back to you what constitutes good performance. Because a lot of times we don't really give that until they don't achieve it, right? And that method is what we call leave alone zap. We leave them alone until they don't do it right, and then we zap them, okay? Leave alone zap leadership. Make sure you diagnose the leadership style to the need, okay? So get an agreement with the person as to the task and the performance requirements, and then determine what is the competency level, what is the commitment level. So on the competencies, what skill is needed, what is their current skill level? What is their training? Is training needed to support this successfully? What current knowledge do they have? Do they have the knowledge base necessary to be successful? Is it related? They may not have the knowledge background to support the task, so we may have to do some different things. Might not be a good task for them. So they may not have the background to actually be successful, and we need to make sure we're setting them up for success. Do they have experience? What is their experience level? Maybe they've been trained, but they just don't have a lot of experience. So as a leader, we're doing our due diligence to make sure that the developmental plan is very detailed and very supportive and going to be successful. And then on the commitment level, you need to judge what are their motivational levels. Are they a reluctant contributor? Okay, how receptive are they going to be to us sitting down and coming up with a developmental plan? You know, in the early days of your lean transformation, before your culture brings all great people to you, you're going to run into this. Okay, so you're going to have to lead through this. Eventually, you're going to be so good, only winners come to you. What's the confidence level and what's their engagement level? Okay, and then as a leader, come up with very specific ways to increase that. So make sure that despite the developmental level, you provide the target and the goal for them to be successful. Okay, and then apply the right leadership style. So to kind of give you a little bit of background on the leadership methodology, if you're D1, you're the enthusiastic beginner, what you have to provide to them is what they cannot provide for themselves. That is direction. You must be clear and concise as to what specific things must they do, and in the case, so what must be done, how it must be done at this point, to do it safely, correctly, conscientiously, and efficiently, and that way, if you follow that job breakdown approach, you got the targets, you got the what, you know, the how, the why, okay. And so that's really what they need right now, because they don't have that, they don't have the knowledge base that's necessary. They're just getting started. Not a lot of two-way conversation in this particular process. They need to know you're confident in what you're telling them to do. So they need to feel that in your engagement there. Once they start to get in the reluctant contributor area, they're just right now they're just struggling with understanding the direction and achieving the level of competence that is required by the role. So here, continue to provide strong direction. You know, what, how, why. Okay, but now you want to start making sure you understand the emotional quotient part of this. You know, what support do they need? Do you need to reinforce them? Let them know that they're doing well. So again, going back to TWI job instruction methodology, what do we do? We've got tryout performance, and what do we do during tryout performance? We let them try it out, but we give them encouragement where needed, and we only step in when needed, right, to correct only those things that need to be corrected. So you can see the situational leadership, the TWI approach coming in here. Again, if they have the knowledge, then it's more the support. How do we get more engagement? Work with them on engagement. And then if they are highly engaged and highly capable, let winners run with the ball. You know, in some cases they need to fall and stumble a little bit. That's part of the experience, right? We're getting them ready for the next level. Okay. Now, we're not going to go into this in a lot of detail, but sometimes we do need to check to see if the performance was good or poor. And so we have a very specific process to follow through. If they don't achieve the performance, how do we get a winner back on track? And we call that redirecting. So we check to see, is it competency or is it commitment? If it's competency, what's the approach? Training, right? Or coaching. Okay, if it's commitment, what is it? Dynamic coaching. So we sit down and we have a very specific process to follow to make sure we coach with respect, with humility. And we start with here was the requirement, here was your performance, here's the gap, the problem-solving approach, here was the expectation, here's what I expect in the future, you know, recurrence prevention countermeasure approach, and then you give them an opportunity to get back on track. You tell them exactly why they're part of your team, why this is important, and that they can do it, and that tomorrow is another day, and we'll try this again tomorrow. So you start with the recommendations for improvement, and then you end with the recommendations of why you have them as a member of your team. Okay, so that they know that they're leaving on a note that you believe in them. If it's good performance, it basically leaves you to develop a new challenge. So half the time we're spending, you know, trying to figure out how we get people back on track, And just when we get that right, we start thinking, man, I got to find out something new for these guys to do to build them into, the new best version of themselves. Yeah, because part of what we do as leaders, we got a challenge. And we need to develop people for that next level of capability and responsibility. A true lean leader will always want to build new lean leaders. So again, this is for you. So when you get this, try this out. You'll notice the breakdown. Once you go through the goal setting, identify a goal and a task, articulate it, and this is in priority order. So priority number 1, capability number 1, capability number 2, capability number 3, 4, and 5. And then it takes you through the analytics of, okay, what's their D level, what is the right leadership style, and then make sure I'm setting goals. And it's kind of a cheat sheet to make sure that you do a good job of analyzing what you need to do as a leader and set people up for success. So there will be a pop quiz on this tomorrow. Be prepared. Buddy team, study, and prepare each other. Well, I don't know. Amanda's like saying, yeah, I need a new buddy. This one's not capable. Okay, so notice we do keep as we sit down to develop as a result of this analysis, we want to sit down and basically use a job breakdown approach to develop the PFEP. And so the PFEP now looks a little bit more like this. Okay, I need you, Amanda, to have this capability, so here is your priority development opportunity. Right now, I consider you a D3, and here's why. And it's really more about the competency level. So we're going to do some additional training and coaching around this, and then I'm going to give you the task. And then here's the platform that we're going to use to develop that. So here is the very specific platform that we're going to use. So what I want to do is I would like for you to lead a quality circle activity. And so I'm going to put you through quality circle training, leader training, and then you're going to be the assistant to me on the next quality circle. And then after that, you will lead the quality circle. I will monitor. So we'll build that up. And then here's the reason why that's important. And so here's some of the activities we got next year. Over the next 3 or 4 years, Boeing is increasing their carbon fiber deposits in the aircraft by 50%. That means for us that we've got a CAPER increase in the business plan of almost 30% a year for the next 3 years. And if we don't start getting capability and start looking for opportunities for improvement, we'll never absorb that capacity. We'll never have the capacity needed to support them. So, okay, is that the big so what? Oh, by the way, I'm looking for you as a potential leader of a new line to help do that. So let's get those skills together. So all of a sudden, yeah, I'm in. Does that mean a raise? That's always the next thing to ask, right? Okay, so a couple of real quick things that I'd like for you to try out come Monday, because the stuff I just covered is the toughest things. This is the easy stuff. I saved the easy stuff for last. Every day in Lean Leadership Academy, and we get them working that, every morning we meet at 7:30 in the morning. And we have a small group leadership team. If you're a Game of Thrones person, it's the small council, So this is our small council, and basically those team leaders that we meet, the class leader and the team leaders, Art and I, we basically develop the day before a top 5 plan, a top 5 critical plan. And we start looking at how do we develop others. So if I am the production leader, who's the person I want to develop next by developing them into a production leader? So the acronym PACE stands for Primary, Alternate, Contingency, and Emergency. And this is based on a Special Forces concept of the whole man concept, but since we're politically correct, I'll call that the whole manager concept. And I've been doing this back when I was a plant manager. I did this pretty regularly, and because I knew that my department leaders had capable staff, that supported them. So my HR leader had an HR team that was capable of making sure that we didn't run off the rails. Whenever I could, I would always say, okay, Amanda, you're going to be a plant manager one day, and I see you got that capability. And if you're a great production manager, but you know what, you need to know a little bit more about the human resources side of things. So when Kevin goes on vacation next month, for the 2 weeks that he's on vacation, guess what you get to be? You get to be Kevin. Now, it's okay. We've got support for you. We got you a team that's going to support you. But we're going to spend the next month starting to help you learn the key leadership role of being an HR manager or an HR leader. And then when Kevin goes on vacation, you will cover for him. Well, who's going to cover for me? Well, we'll pull one level up. Or what I like to do, okay, the quality manager, guess what he gets to be now? So we start prepping him. So the PACE plan is, for Amanda, her primary function is production manager. Her alternate skill is going to be HR manager. The contingency will be the quality manager. They're always complaining with each other. Production's always fighting with quality. So it's like, let them live their pain a little bit. So, okay, so you got to be quality manager for 2 weeks, 6 months from now, and you're going to understand more about the quality components of the production side. And then emergency, it might be you're going to lead the bucket brigade, So if there's a fire, you're going to run everybody out of the building. So it literally is a primary, alternate, contingency, emergency that exposes them to the other staff department level requirements that prepares them for that next level of responsibility. And I normally had someone that was going to be the ops manager or the plant manager. They get to be the controller for a while, and they start learning how to read the financial plans and how to close the books every month. So that was a big important thing. But at the team member level, we did this as well. So at the team level, we found the 4 top critical skills that every team member needed to have, and we cross-trained. Every team member had a primary function, an alternate skill, a contingency skill, an emergency skill, either one level up the value stream or one level down the value stream, that said, if I need someone to be flexible, I can take you, because you're my customer process, and you've been trained to do the basic skills there. And their primary, they would always have basic, intermediate, and advanced. So the primary skill had a basic, intermediate, advanced level, and then everybody had alternate, contingency, and emergency. Try that. Just come up with a plan and put your people out and say who's going to be primary, who's alternate. Always have a PACE plan for anything that's critical. And the last thing I want to cover with you is making people development a daily priority. So every day, my lean leaders come up with a top 5 plan, and they commit to it. And so in the transformation process, at least 3 of those bullets are going to be relative to the transformation process. Today, what actions will I take to advance the lean transformation process today? And then at least 2 of those bullets will be who are the folks that I need to develop with very specific details, tomorrow and today. And so every morning they brief that. The senior leader briefs his top 5 priorities, and every team leader briefs their top 5 priorities. 2 of those will be some kind of commitment to develop people. Might be I force rank them. Maybe they got 6 people on their team, and I make Amanda cause her to force rank based on engagement in the beginning. Okay, who's your number 1 for engagement? Who's your number 6 for engagement? Why are they your number 6 for engagement? And then we go through that process. Tomorrow, they can, let's see who I don't have. What's your name? Elizabeth. Okay, Elizabeth's struggling. Okay, so Amanda, tomorrow, Elizabeth can't be number 6. What is your detailed plan to develop her? What specifically do you need to develop to get her off the number 6 spot and get her into the middle of the pack? So they go into that plan. They brief what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, why they're going to do it, and then we do a midday review the next day. At the end of the day, that top 5 is color-coded. You're either red or you're green. And guess what we start with? The reds. Why are you red? Why could you not accomplish that? So at the end after we're finished for the day, the leadership group gets back together, small council gets back together, and they all report out on their top 5 accomplishment, starting with the reds. And then we come up with, okay, You can't, you know, if you were red, what was the reason? What's the details behind that? And how do we get you green tomorrow? Because now that's number one on your hit parade. So every day, every leader has a top 5 that's advancing the lean transformation process functionally and people development every day. Required. 3 of them are going to be lean transformation, 2 of them are going to be people development. 3 of them are going to be people development, 2 of them are going to be the lean transformation process. And every day they do that, and every week they do that. Every week, my plan for this week, here's my top 5. And I'm going to work on Amanda on her communication skills. And how are you going to do that, Sam? We're going to make a presentation this week on 5S, and Amanda's going to present all of them. and she's going to receive coaching. And we do things like that. You know, it's like I'll have all kinds of stuff where they have to communicate, you know, in front of people until they get their confidence up in their communication skills. Is that something you can do on Monday? Yes. Yeah, okay. Okay, again, just a top 5. Advance the process, advance the people. Other than that, what questions can I answer for you? There will be a pop quiz tomorrow. Oh, okay. Well, they heard about it. So, I know it's a lot to digest, but again, this is the first time I presented it, and you know, and I just wanted to give you the opportunity. What questions? Is there any questions that I can answer? Yeah, go ahead.